afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Liverpool Health Partners webinar on support for health research across Liverpool and the North West coast. We are recording this webinar to make it available after the event, so please can you remain muted unless you're speaking. Ella, can you put up the agenda, please? So over the next hour, you will hear presentations from representatives from some of the key research and innovation organisations across the North West coast. And this will hopefully enable you to understand the remit of each organisation, what support they provide and how best that you can engage with them. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. Seema Chauhan, who is Head of Liverpool Health Partners Spark.
Thank you, Gillian. Hopefully you can see my slides okay. So yeah. I'm Seema Chauhan. I'm the head of LHP's Joint Research Service within Liverpool. And this is Spark, which stands for Single Point of Access for Research and Knowledge. So today I'll be providing an overview of our functions and how we can support you. So within Spark, we have a dedicated and experienced research team that can provide support from your grant applications, supporting and facilitating the costings and different aspects of the grant application process, right through to study setup. Our main functions include working with the LHP programme managers and supporting those early stage discussions and thinking about which grant application you would apply for and different development opportunities. Spark acts as a single contact point to support health-related grant applications and costings. This therefore reduces duplication of administration in the grant development process and alleviates pressures on the researchers. So you've got more of a structured approach to developing and managing a grant rather than having to go to different people at different stages to be able to get your grant application developed. We deliver a one-stop shop for study setup. The priorities and values and missions have been aligned around one single research focus with our partners to provide an effective and timely support for researchers to increase research activity. And we monitor this through our real-time dashboards, which we use Edge as our data set. And this underpins our research management across our LHP partners. So these are our LHP members. So we have 8 NHS trusts and 4 higher education institutes as shown on this slide. We also work with our other key partners, which you'll hear from today, which includes the Innovation Agency, CRN North West Coast, Research Design Service and ARC. But we also work very closely with our Liverpool Clinical Trial Centre as well. This is an overview of our Spark structure. And I just wanted to highlight the sort of main groups within the team. Our main R&D kind of core support is split into different pillars. And this includes the medicine team, surgery, cancer and speciality, and we're linking closely with the CRN primary care team. And then we have our operational groups, which provide support around quality assurance, sponsorship, governance, our grants applications team, legal and contracts, and then we have support from our LHP Spark Edge BI team, and this links in with our members. So just to highlight our key members of the Spark team, we have our LHP Spark Strategic Operations Manager, which is Tom Rice. Jill Rees is our Grants and Costings Lead. Heather Rogers is our Governance Lead within Spark. And our Head of Spark Edge BI team is Maria Maguire. Our Specialty and Medicine and Surgery Cancer Pillar Leads are Nicole Clamp, Eddie Staunton and Lorraine Wilson-Mans. And Atul Katacha is our Contracts Officer. So this slide gives an overview of our LHP grants process, and this is a process that's been agreed with our partners. And I know it looks complicated and busy, but it's mainly to show you how we work in close collaboration with all of our key partners, which includes our NHS and HEI partners, but as well as our NHR infrastructure, as well as Liverpool Clinical Trial Centre. And it kind of gives you an idea of the level of support that we can provide to you when you're developing a grant application. We ask please to contact us as soon as possible, whether it's an early idea or you're thinking of submitting a grant application. We can therefore provide full support to develop your grant application, and this will be to facilitate the costings, develop the patient pathway, ensuring that all the relevant parties are involved within the grant application, that we identify the relevant sponsor and ensure that we get the correct validations of the SOCAT and approvals in place well before the submission deadline. So within the Spark Grants team, we can facilitate the following. So we can provide advice on different funding calls, coordinate those initial meetings to help develop the patient pathway and costings, and then facilitate the grant costings, so gain all the costs from all the different partners. And this can be the research costs, the co-applicant costs, PPI, translational costs, developing the SOCAT, working with CRN cord specialists to validate the NHS costs, and other collaborator costs, including anything that may involve pharma. And we can also facilitate the approvals and sign off for your grant application, link you in with the sponsor, think about contracts that will be needed around your grant application for your study, and again, establish any other collaborations that have not already been put in place. What we can't support are study design, statistical support, helping you write the actual grant application itself, protocol development, completion of IRAS regulatory applications, and post-award budget management. But we can help signpost you to the relevant people who can help with these different areas of your grant application process. So please contact us and we will help you. Once your study is awarded and you want to start thinking about study setup, the Spark Setup Governance and Contracts team can act as a link to undertake all the capacity and capability setup processes. And this will include providing support and guidance to investigators through the CNC approval process, facilitate local authorizations that are required for your study, provide sponsorship support, provide study costings and appropriate costing templates that are required in addition to anything that's been put in place for the grant application, provide support within those contract negotiations, which can sometimes be quite complicated, ensure the checks are in place for study documentations and approvals, facilitate governance and financial amendments in line with study setup, and signpost you again to any other services and support teams. So the information that is all available on our website, and this is our link, so please have a look on there. And to contact us, we ask that you get in touch with inquiries, because we are a small team. So if you go through inquiries, they'll be able to triage them through to the relevant team members within Spark. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Seema. That was great. Thank you. And we'll just move straight on to Mark Goodall, who's going to give a presentation on the NIHR Research Design Service in the Northwest. Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, hi, I'm Mark Goodall. I'm a frontline advisor for the Research Design Service based in the Northwest and obviously in the Mersey and Cheshire, which is located actually in the University of Liverpool. Next slide, please. So we were created by the NIHR to help give advice, and it is the word advice, so but it's coming from a good place and a lot of experience. And we're providing advice on their research design of your projects during the application process. So once you've gone through the application process and you had a decision made, the RDS don't get involved in afterwards. So we're very much at the beginning, before, in the early stages. And we're looking to develop high quality research proposals for national peer-reviewed funding competitions for allied and social care research. And you can see that the RDS is sort of geographically located. So if you're in the West Midlands, then obviously you'd go to that RDS, and if you're in Southeast, you would go to that RDS. And in some ways, that's a useful bit for because we know local knowledge, and that helps us. Next slide, please. So what can we advise on in terms of the research funding streams? And in fact, most research funding streams, the key bit is it's national and it's peer reviewed. So we do talk about NIHR a lot because obviously they fund us, but we'll help you with the research council, so Wellcome and MRC and the ERC as well, and also with certain charities. So some charities are also individually looked at, but also some of them work with the other organizations. So I know several charities have joint projects that work with the NIHR, and that's how they do it. The key bit for us is this national peer reviewed bit, and also that it needs to be applied health and social care. So again, there's a little bit of a remit check, and we will make sure that you fit within our remit and what we're allowed to talk to different groups about. Next slide. So what do we do? Well, we've got a lot of expertise in various different areas. So you can see the big list there. The idea that I always say to people when I speak to them the first time is that you will have me as your case manager, but behind me sits a wider group of experts. They may be senior methodologists, but they may also be similar groups of people like me who are in that way supporting you at that initial stages, but actually you might need some specific advice on an individual particular thing. I will find somebody who can help give the answer to that question, or we might say, actually, you need to go to another organization and get that advice from them. We definitely look at the specific funding and the different programs, and we are very good at knowing what that program is about. And actually, the reason we do that is because actually most of us have at some point observed the panel making those decisions. So we've sat at the back of the room, listened to how they looked at the applications in front of them, and then we come away with a little bit of insight and go, okay, that's that particular program, they're looking for this. Okay, when I give the advice, I'll make sure that I'm also looking for that. And again, you can look at our website to find more about our expertise, but it's very broad in terms of what we do. Next slide. But apart from the expertise, we do talk to you about other things. So definitely about, obviously, which is the right funding stream for you. There's definitely this bit about a dream team. We are very much aware of what the panels are looking for in terms of how they look at the team and whether the team is appropriate and is able to do the research that you're proposing, and therefore it makes the application better. So one of the things I always say to people is panels don't want to see an expert. They want to see an expert. They don't want to see those people who do it sort of part-time as a little bit. So the cardiologist should be focused on their cardiology and not worry about the statistics. The statistics should be done by somebody else. If the cardiologist knows some statistics, that's fine, but they don't necessarily want to have all the expertise sitting in one or two people. You need to make sure the team is appropriate for what you're trying to do. We always definitely talk about involving the public, so that public involvement is a key part of it. And that's very much about identifying what the voice of the public is and why this research is important. That comes to the research question and supporting you and to make sure that's a research question. And there are some reasons, why you may have a research question, but you may not. And again, we look at those different parts of it. Definitely help you with the grant in terms of writing the application. And we know different aspects of it. There are lots of issues with applications in terms of there are word count limits and how do you manage that, and we will at least give you some advice about how best to deal with that. Definitely, like we've just had before, we are a wide group of different people offering lots of different services, and we are working in partnership with everybody, and we will definitely signpost you to that specialized support when you need it. We will look at ethics and governance, but we're not there to help you with the ethics. We're just there to ask the questions about whether you've looked at it and you've made the right argument or the right discussion points that you've raised in your application that actually means the panel can make a judgment that there's good ethical governance going on in your application. Definitely something which is the critical read, and the critical read is about getting that narrative right. So I read many applications, and I've read lots of them. I've read lots of good ones, I've read lots of bad ones, I've read lots of ones that need a bit of work. And we look for things like duplication. Actually, you're repeating yourself here. Maybe you need to think, well, actually, can I structure this so I only ever say this once? A lot of the professors I review applications for, what I tend to find is I'm helping them with the flow of the project that they put forward, because it's around a particular funding stream, and the funding stream is looking for certain things, and saying it one way is better than saying it the way that they originally did. So again, it's just thinking about those, and there's definitely much more. Next slide, please. We run some events, so we do things like this where I talk to people about what the RDS does, but we also run our own events. So please have a look on our website. If you get, if you register with us, you can get on our newsletters and you'll get sent various different bits. We do have some pre-submission panels where there are senior members of staff who will review your application, and they will give you some feedback, and that's immensely useful in that final stages just before you're about to apply, to have this sort of very much input, and they might say, actually, you've not made this quite clear, maybe you need to change something. We do have a public involvement fund, but that's open to RDS clients, and it's a small pot of money, but it helps you with that public involvement process, and hopefully gets that embedded within your project. Definitely lots of stuff on our website, please have a look at it, and you'll find all those sort of different resources that are there. If you go to the next slide. So what happens? So how do we work? Well, okay, so what you do is you submit as an advice request form, and that's actually on the website. It asks you a few questions about who you are, what you're doing, what bits of advice you're looking for. That may not necessarily be the advice that you're given, but that's fine. At least you're giving us a pointer about what you want. But actually, when we start looking at a project, we tend to look at it holistically, and we'll give you some other bits of advice that maybe you want and maybe you don't. But again, it's one of those things. We will give the advice and we'll let you decide whether you're going to use it or not. You'll then have a face-to-face meeting, or a lot of it is video conference at the moment, but we will have that chat with you. We'll talk you through what you're planning, and then we'll work with you up until that date of the deadline, and then you submit it. Now, if it's a two-stage process, you will submit an application in the first stage, and then they will say, we are interested, can you submit the second one? Again, we can get actively back involved at that stage to help you with that second part of the application as well. And that's how we work. There's no cost to it. It is all paid for by the NHR. So it's about how much advice we give is really up to the individual. So some people I'll meet once, some people I'll handhold a little bit more. And I've known a few people over several years come back to us with their second and third applications. And then we've sort of built up a bit of a relationship on how they're doing and what they're doing. And that's how we're doing it. Okay, next slide. Yep. So people have said nice things about us. That's what this slide is essentially saying. I think what we find is that RDS has probably improved applications that panels see. So if it goes through the RDS, that critical read, that critical friend, that's somebody who's going to ask you those awkward questions, that asks you to sort of think about what you're trying to put forward and how you're saying it, matters. And it really makes a difference to the project. And I always say to people, when you're thinking about the project, you need to be thinking about three things, which is needs-led, science added, and value for money. Needs-led bit is that how is this going to help patients? NIHR are very much interested in patient benefit. What a difference are you going to make to their lives if you solve the problem that you've identified? The science added bit is this is really research. This is something that you are building on maybe the evidence base. And occasionally I'll get somebody coming to me with a research idea, I'll quickly Google it, and I'll find that there are 30 other people who've already done it. So the first question then is, how are you different? If you're not different, then maybe you need to build on their work, and that's your next step rather than, and that would be the advice, and that's what we move forward. In terms of the value for money, actually, is this worth investment in whatever the research funding stream are going to put in? So if they're going to put in £500,000 or £1 million or £10 million or whatever into the research plan you've got, are you making the case that this is worth doing? Is there a big problem for the NHS? If it's not a big problem, well, how are you going to do it? You're going to save them money? You're going to, you know, what are you going to do? So we will ask all these questions in terms of how we give our advice. So there's obviously a lot of people who've been satisfied with us. And I think a lot of people will see that that critical friend bit does make a big difference to the application. Next slide. We have been quite as an RDS, we've been quite successful with our projects. You can see that over 240 million each year is actually, you know, those are the projects that are successful. So that's quite a lot. And when I look at my own portfolio of the 150 projects I've done, I think I'm sitting at about 24 million. That's slightly because I've got a couple of big projects that are on it as my case is, but actually, even on an individual basis, we actually support quite a lot of active research that's going on in terms of that successes. But for every success, please be aware that there are people who don't get it. And in fact, we're only as ever good as the funding stream's hit rate. So if the funding stream is funding at 30%, RDS is not going to get you any more than that. What we might do is we might make sure that you're in that 30% rather than in the other 70%. Okay, next slide. So how do you get hold of us? Well, actually, you can look on the website, and I've put a link in the chat, but you can send us an email and we can then offer you some advice and see whether you fit with what we're doing. And I think that's my last slide.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was great.
Okay.
Thank you. And next up is from the NIHR Northwest Coast Clinical Research Network, and we have Catherine Jobson giving this presentation.
Thanks, Gillian. Good afternoon, everyone. I think Ella's going to put my presentation up. Great, okay. So, Clinical Research Network Northwest Coast. So I'm Catherine Jobson, as Gillian said. I'm the Study Support Service Lead, and Gavin Sodhi is our Industry Operations Manager for the Northwest Coast. So if you have any queries around commercial studies or queries, Gavin is your main man. And we've got the local study support connection there, email address, and the National Study Support Service help desk as well. So that's how you would contact us. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of geographical knowledge here. So this is what the Northwest, well, what the UK is split up into in terms of LCRNs. Obviously, we're there in number 2 area. Now, this will change in April 2024 as we're going to merge with Greater Manchester CLRN. So we don't know too much about what this will look like at the moment. We're going out for a new tender for a host organisation in October this year. So we should have more information about what the infrastructure should look like then. As everything is going on, you know, in the ministerial cabinet at the moment, it could be a good chance that that decision is delayed. But obviously, when we know about it, we will relay that information to everybody. So individually, we receive, in terms of funding, 300 million across all LCRNs each year, which is filtered down from the DHSE. In the Northwest Coast, we received 16 million annually to support research in NHS and social care settings, and we have over 500 staff funded by the CRN Northwest Coast across the region. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in terms of what NHS organisations we take care of and we look after, there are 19 NHS trusts and 17 CCGs. However, as of the 1st of July this year, they've been disbanded and they're now replaced with integrated care systems called ICSs, and they are based in Cheshire and Wirral and in Lancashire. So we cover a population of around 3.9 million people across our patch. That includes GP involvement, and we've had 54% included in research studies in the last year across 286 practices in the region. And we support studies in primary care such as Principal, Panoramic and the new Stimulate ICP study. And we've recruited in year 22 to 23, 10,816 research participants across secondary and primary care. So again, this might look slightly different again when we merge with Manchester in 2024. So again, we'll update as and when. Next slide, please. So how can the Clinical Research Network help you? So what we thought would be good is to show you, next slide please Ella, a very short 2 to 3 minute video instead of me just talking and waffling on around what the study service support can offer. So in terms of early contact and engagement, we would link in specifically with Spark if you're an LHP partner, and or the RDS at that point to talk about grant applications or what applications you might be considering going for, and you contact us about how you would get in touch with us about portfolio adoption and what the eligibility criteria is. Early feedback in terms of expression of interest for participating sites and site ID. Optimise and delivery, we will give you information and guidance on how to increase your patient population, what the best sites are in terms of target population for your particular study, and effective study setup and performance monitoring. Performance monitoring goes on if your study is adopted to the portfolio. It's performance managed throughout the life of its study by one of our dedicated research facilitators, and you'll also be given a research delivery manager to make sure your study is recruiting to time to target as planned. So Ella, if you could just click, control and click on the black link there. This video will be 2 to 3 minutes, and it might be worth just turning your sound up. It is quite low on this particular video.
Can you see that?
So if you control and click on the study support service NIHR. And if you just skip the ad when it lets you, there we go. So if you turn up your volume a little bit. Can everybody hear that?
No.
No.
No, can't hear it.
Ella, could you just check the settings, please?
Which will increase the consistency and visibility of our support. This means regardless of topic or location.
Yes, please. Sorry, everyone.
That's fine.
The NIHR Clinical Research Network supports the development, setup and delivery of high-quality research in England. We already provide added value to the research community through a range of guidance and procedures to support study delivery in the NHS. The CRN Study Support Service will bring these separate elements together, which will increase the consistency and visibility of our support. This means regardless of topic or location, all eligible studies will receive the same level of support. To get the most out of the Study Support Service, we encourage sponsors, researchers, study teams and R&D offices to discuss studies with their local clinical research network as soon as possible. They'll help you understand how the network can help you deliver your study to your timelines and recruitment target. Once this conversation is underway, we can work out how to best support you and your study. For commercial studies, we offer guidance for the conduct of your study in the NHS, such as patient access or local prescribing. And through a single submission, we also coordinate the distribution of study information across the entire NHS to enable the identification of potential sites for your research. If you haven't been in contact with the network early on, we will undertake a review of study delivery to help identify potential challenges and explore the type of support you'll need. We provide access to network-funded research delivery staff to support study recruitment. We also help eligible studies arrange access to staff within NHS service support departments, such as pharmacy, radiology, and pathology. Working with study teams, we will produce a performance monitoring plan to ensure the study is delivered to your study timelines and patient recruitment target. When your study closes, we will undertake a performance review so we continue to improve our services and processes. For more information about the Study Support Service, you can speak to our help desk. Drop us an email or visit our website.
Next slide, please, Ella. Okay, so I hope you found that informative. So what that means, basically, in a nutshell, is the CRN supports studies by funding research, support posts in the NHS and social care, and provide national training ensuring researchers have access to experienced staff. So we have a task force support with a lady called Sue Rigby, who is the lead for our, she's a lead matron for all our task force staff. So if your study is portfolio adopted and you do need additional staff to run your study, we can put you in contact with Sue, who will sort that out. There's options for funding to meet the costs of using facilities such as scanners and x-rays, helping identify and recruit patients, enabling researchers to complete their study on time and on target, support academics with linking them to regional and national leads within the speciality areas. So for the speciality areas for CRN at the moment, we are focusing on things like cancer, mental health, cardiovascular, and respiratory and infectious diseases. Next slide, please. So to get all this support, your study will need to be adopted onto the NIHR portfolio. And what adoption means is the NIHR Clinical Research Network portfolio of studies consists of the clinical research studies that are eligible for support for the NIHR CRN in England. All high quality research studies eligible for CRN support in England are included on the NIHR portfolio. Now, studies have to meet specific eligibility criteria to become portfolio study awarded. So the three methods for requesting that adoption process is via CPMS, IRAS, or you can speak to your local CRN and they will advise any instruction if you haven't managed to get adopted through CPMS or the IRAS system by clicking question 5B on your IRAS form. So if you've clicked no for whatever reason on your IRAS form that you don't want your study to be included in adoption, we can manually do an application for you, and that's when you'd need to give us a call and we'd work with you to sort that out. Next slide, please. So how do you do it? How do you get onto the portfolio? What does it mean when we talk about eligibility? So it must meet the needs, the clear definition of research. So if we find that your study is more of a service evaluation or an audit, it's unlikely to be eligible for portfolio. It must have appropriate ethical approval, such as NHS local approval, social care rec, Ministry of Defence rec, and Health Authority approval where required. It must have full research funding, i.e. funding to meet all research costs in compliance with the core guidance, which I'll talk about in the next slide. But we have included the link there to the eligibility criteria for the network support if you'd like to look at this after the presentation, and we can share these slides with you as well. So there used to be a portfolio application form, which is no longer required to apply for clinical research network support and was removed from IRAS in early November 2020. So if your study is English-led, CTIMP, for instance, and you are applying for HRA approval through the HRA and MHRA's combined review service, you must apply for CRM support through the non-commercial portfolio application service within CPMS. So the CPMS is the main database that we use to register everything that we do in terms of research, monitoring, site identification, etc. And you'll need a login for that. So you just log into NIHR website and create yourself an account, and that's how you get into CPMS. So studies that require HRA approval, but not being processed through the combined review. These studies should continue to apply for NHR support by selecting yes to question 5B, as I've previously mentioned, on the IRS project filter. This information, including the IRAS form and the study protocol and grant award letters, will be used to determine eligibility. So if you're unable to apply through either of these routes, contact your local CRN or us in this instance, and we can talk about you on how to proceed. Next slide, please. So, can we just go back to that last one, please, Ella? Sorry, there's a few other things I've got to talk about. So, eligibility in terms of what that means and the definition. It must meet the definition of research. Just to go into it a little bit more detail, because it can get a little bit technical. Just to mention that commercially funded studies are automatically eligible. There may be some outliers. So if it's a foreign commercial funder, it may need consideration by the portfolio eligibility team. However, studies that are funded in the NHR and other areas of central governments, and those studies which are funded by non-commercial partners, are automatically eligible for consideration for CRN support, provided they meet the definition of research, which means anything awarded, studies awarded as a result in open competition across England, and have been high quality peer reviewed. So Mark was talking about that earlier. Fund research that is of clear value to the NHS, social care and public health, take appropriate account of the priorities, needs and the realities of the NHS, social care and public health in making decisions about research that they fund. Now, there is some outliers depending on if your study is eligible. So the following types of non-commercial studies are considered potentially eligible, and they are investigator-initiated commercial collaborative studies, so industry funded and non-industry sponsored studies, non-commercial studies funded by overseas governments, non-commercial studies funded by overseas charities, and certain other high quality studies. So if it's a study that, if it's a funder that we can't immediately identify that ties back to your study, and may need some further investigation by the eligibility team, and they will work through that with us and with you direct. So I hope all that makes sense, but again, we can share these slides with you and you can contact us if you have any questions. So next slide, please. So funding and costs. As I said before, at this point, when you're thinking about applying for a grant application or costing your study up to see if it's feasible to run, we would work with Spark and or the RDS in the first instance. And for non-commercial studies in particular, they use a SOCAT, which is called a Schedule of Events Cost and Attribution Tool. And the word costing in there can be quite deceptive because it's not actually a costing template, it's an attribution template. So I know that some NHS organisations use this to cost their studies, and that is fine. But it's just to make you aware that when the SOCAT does come to the CRN validation, we will only check the attributes against the activity and not the costings themselves. The trust who was sponsoring the study would take responsibility for that. So there's a thing called the Accord Guidance, which the NHR released many years ago, and it's how we attribute the costs against the SOCAT. So for instance, if we're talking about patient consent or patient identification, we would attribute that to a study support cost. Anything that answers the research question directly ends, any activity that ends when the study finishes is a research cost. But we can give you more information about that offline, because I can waffle on a little bit about that a lot. So yeah, in terms of non-commercial attributions, you would use a SOCAT. Anything that needs to be costed for a commercial study, you would use an integrating costing tool that is normally drafted by the sponsoring commercial organisation and sent to sites and the CRN for checking and validation. So going back to the SOCAT, that is a mandatory part of the funding application for submissions for all single and second stage applications to NHR and NHR partner funding streams. It requires validation by the lead network and Accord specialist at funding stages 1 and 2, and then again at the point of HRA submission. So we know that things can change on the patient pathway depending on funders' review and recommendations between stage 1 and 2, and then again potentially at HRA submission there may be some amendments before the study actually starts. So we would look at the SOCAT again then on your behalf. So the SOCAT provides a detailed summary of all study costs and identifies any excess treatment costs, and excess treatment costs must be reported to the coordinating centre for timely reimbursement. So if we find that whilst we're checking the attributions for your study and the treatment costs are higher than the research costs, that would be an excess treatment cost. And we would apply to the commissioning centre, well, the coordinating centre in Leeds at NHR on your behalf to see if we can find a commissioner to pay for your excess treatment costs. They would not generally be funded from the award, from the grant application. So again, with Spark collaboration, we would initially work with you and have an initial meeting with you if you were to consider drafting a SOCAT in line with your grant application. We work with Spark under the LHP partnership, and if you are not part of the LHP partnership, we work with you directly as an investigator or your R&D department to pull your costs together and validate your SOCAT. And training can be provided for R&Ds in the future. So what we've realised is some of the R&D departments around the Merseyside area and wider area don't have much experience in drafting SOCATs and knowledge about the Accord guidance. So what the network are going to be doing is offering training on that over the next couple of months, and maybe some drop-in sessions. So we can support you in drafting those directly with your investigators. So we'll be in touch about that, and we can send you some more information. Next slide, please. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. So I'm not sure whether we have time for questions now, Gillian.
We'll leave it. If we have a few minutes at the end, we might do it then. Thank you very much, Catherine.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now going to move on to Jane Cloak from the NIHR ARC Northwest Coast. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Gillian. So yes, I'm Jane Cloak. I'm from the NIHR Applied Research Collaboration for the Northwest Coast. And I'm going to just give you an overview of what we do and the opportunities and the support that's available. I'm just going to check that I'm not on mute anymore. Is that everybody can hear me okay? Great, great, wonderful. Nothing more embarrassing than mouthing away, is there? Okay, so Catherine's already spoken about the geography of the Northwest Coast, and we cover a similar, we cover the same footprint currently as the CRN, although not entirely sure what happens once we come to this merging of regions. Hopefully that won't affect us. But our membership is similar to the CRN core organisations, but as well as NHS organisations, we work with local authorities, we work with third sector organisations and charities. So ARC Northwest Coast, we're a connected research community for the Northwest Coast region, and we're working together to working together to learn more about health inequalities and overcome the barriers around translating these discoveries in health research into practice to improve lives. So we're bringing academics, practitioners, people with lived experience together into that connected research community with an ambition to build capacity in applied health and social care research and implementation so that we can address health inequalities and leave that lasting legacy. Oh no, back a bit, sorry. So I guess our global objective is to increase or to achieve health equity, and then specifically to build capacity in applied health and social care research in the Northwest Coast. Next slide, please. Thanks. This is just a diagram to show how the relationship between what we put in and what we actually hope to achieve. We're funded by the NIHR, and we have co-funding from our member organisations, and of course we've got time from our members of the public. We bring people together into enhanced networks. We deliver training. We support research and implementation, and we develop tools. In terms of capacity building, we aim to give people the tools and the confidence to develop and understand research. And we just support development of skills, knowledge and confidence in public involvement and engagement with that health inequalities lens. We put in a substantial investment to train doctoral students with the skills to work in applied research in this space. I mean, they're the researchers of the future. Plus, we run an internship scheme which supports staff within our member organisations to develop research skills, to take them back into their organisation, and also to develop their research careers. So we offer backfill, bespoke training, including topics such as data science, turning races, which is effectively turning systematic reviews into policy or practice guides that can be used by their organisation, implementation science, and we've also got a current emphasis on mental health, some additional funding to support early career researchers and internships to do research in mental health. So we host meetings and events to connect researchers and the public and practitioners to develop projects and really to improve that understanding and start that that mobilising knowledge, that knowledge mobilisation journey. Could I have the next slide, please? So ultimately, we expect to a legacy of creative collaboration, so that we provide evidence-informed practice and positive change. We want to be able to change our ways of working so we can do more co-production and systematise the health equity tools that we've developed, and also the role of public and patients, so that collectively as organisations, as in a region, we're more effective and aware and innovative in applied health and social care research. So next slide, please. So I think if your research interests coincide with our aims and the ways in which we work to achieve them, so very much a focus on health inequalities, very much a focus on co-producing research with patients, public practitioners and academics, then contact us for a discussion. We have a bespoke capacity building team. I've included that their dedicated email address there, so do get in contact, and I'll slip the website details in the chat as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jane. That was great. And our final speaker of today is from the Innovation Agency, and that is Juliet Kumar. Thank you, Juliet.
Hi, everyone. I hope just checking in that you can see my slides. Is that
okay? Can, yes.
Grand, super. It's all working well. So hi, everybody. It's really good to be on this webinar today. So I'm going to jog through some of the work that the Innovation Agency does and how we can support researchers in terms of developing, connecting and accessing health and care systems. I think it's important to say that we're not an academic, although we're an academic health science network, we're not an academic organisation, as it were, but we do partner with and connect with academic community and organisations within the North West Coast. So we are an NHS organisation. We're a member of one of 15 academic health science networks, and there's also the HSN network, so that's a network of networks, if you like. So we connect together to really focus on the spread and adoption of innovation. So really at the kind of end stage of research where we know that something works well, it's going to really be impactful on patients or our organisations, and how they run, or the outcomes for patients. So we're at the spread and adoption end, where we've got proven innovation. We also are set up to deliver a number of national patient safety programmes that are funded through NHS England. And again, those are programmes where we have innovations, and that's not just a bit of kit or tech, that's what might be a way of doing things that is proven, and that they want to get the full kind of weight of programme support into the spread into the clinical areas. So that's our national safety, patient safety programmes. We also support business growth and job creation. Part of our metrics is around increasing wealth in the region and bringing jobs to the region. So that's another aspect of our goal. But ultimately, we are a connector in the system, matchmaker from solutions to challenges, if you like. And we're also an honest broker. So where there are discussions around redesign, we're not there to kind of be salespeople for particular SMEs or companies, but we are there to highlight the capabilities that innovation can bring when services are seeking to redesign or to do things differently. And so our kind of mantra is, if you're going to do any change or make any change in your organisations or systems, come and have a chat with us, because we may know something that can really help you. So this is our pipeline. This is how we manage or curate the innovations that we are cited on. From, this, we've got that somebody has a good idea, but there's no perhaps evidence behind that. So what we can do, and moving right through to, we have an innovation that is fully evidence-based and is a no-brainer, and we would then put our support behind that for the rollout, either nationally or locally. So in terms of the support we offer at the bottom there, you can see we can help people with real world validation. We have some ERDF funding and OLS, Office of Life Science funding, for really testing out innovation in a real world context, and we work with our academic partners to do that. We can do impact studies, appreciative inquiry, roundtable, meet the providers. So we might bring together some of the health and care organisation system to meet some of the SMEs in our that we are aware of that might have a solution to the challenges that they have, right through to supporting with market access. So that's really around our OLS commission. We also link into the Accelerated Access Collaborative, which is the national support for innovation. And again, they take a pipeline approach from idea right through to adoption and spread. And there is a number of opportunities or support available for people if they have come to the end of the research and you have your innovation ready. Then there are a number of awards, and there's accelerator programs, clinical entrepreneur program. That's where, if you're a clinician working in practice and you've got a great idea or an innovation, there's a program with other clinicians where they can help you with accelerating the spread of that. And also commercialising that product and helping you navigate the tension between being a clinician and also being an entrepreneur, and giving you a bit of a tribe to help you work through that, because we often find that entrepreneurs, we're trying to keep entrepreneurs in the NHS and not have them go elsewhere to spread their great ideas. So we also, in terms of the innovation agency in this region, we have our coaching academy, and that's really the sort of innovation and improvement capability and capacity building arm. So we deliver courses and workshops, and also design programs and bespoke offers for our organisations designed to meet specific needs or challenges. So these are some of our open programs that we run. They're open to anyone in our in our region, the Northwest Coast. So innovators mindset is really about, you know, thinking about innovation in your context, looking at innovation competencies for yourself, kind of personal development, evaluation fundamentals. I've got an innovation, what do I need to start thinking about in terms of collecting evidence? We also run coach programs because we often find that, you know, we have lots of tools and techniques for implementation, but actually it's relation, you know, the health system is about people and it's very relational. So the quality of the conversations that we have in leading innovation projects or leading improvement projects is around how do we empower people, how do we bring people along, and how do we help them overcome the challenges they have given their context, their style, and their communities. We also have a programme for spread and adoption, and we're just setting up our own local innovation community as well. Conscious of time, so I'm going to rattle through these. We also deliver a lot of local conferences and events. We have we're involved in the Northwest Masterclass series. All of this you can find on our website. We are really good at connecting people. We try and maintain a live system intelligence database from Lancashire, South Cumbria and Cheshire and Merseyside. So it's constantly changing, leadership is constantly changing, so we keep a live system intelligence database. We network with the HSN network, as I said, and we also collaborate locally with our other research organisations. And an example of that is the Northwest Coast Research and Innovation Awards. We try and help innovators access the health and care system. We know that it's really difficult for our innovators, our SMEs, to understand NHS architecture and get into NHS systems. So we try and be that connector and help people access systems. I think I've talked a bit about Coaching Academy already, but those are the kind of 5 areas of support that we particularly offer. We also, more recently, have been helping our ICB systems and local systems to redesign systems or services, but also knitting in innovation curation. So again, that's when you're looking at a new pathway, what are the capabilities that are in there, and have you thought about X, Y, and Z that might help you with this? So we're cited on not just our own pipeline of innovation, but also the network, the HSN network pipeline. And that kind of just describes that a bit more. Anyway, I'm conscious I've got a minute left. I apologise, Gillian, but these are some helpful contacts. I think there's a generic info@innovation agency. So if you just, you know, not quite sure who you want to talk to or find out more about, then I would suggest you email that. Otherwise, we'll share these later, but there's a number of the kind of key leads for the programmes that we support, and you've got more direct contacts to those people. And I'll stop there.
Well, thank you very much, Juliet. That was really good. Thank you. So just to wrap up, I just want to say a big thank you to all our speakers today for providing certainly what I thought was some very, very useful information and contacts. There's no time for questions, but please do contact the individuals and the contact details that via the contact details that they provided on their slides. If you have any questions about today's presentation or about your own research ideas, processes, and so on that you're going through. I've put a survey link in the chat, so can you please complete that to give us some feedback on today's event. We are going to share the recording of today's event, so please, we will send links on when it's ready, and please do share this with your colleagues, so that they too can have a better understanding of how to engage with the different organisations that are here to help you on your research journey. And finally, thank you all for taking the time to attend today, and I hope you all have a good rest of the day. Thank you.